The following program is a work of satire and is intended for entertainment purposes only. No identification with actual persons, living or deceased, places, buildings, or products is intended or should be inferred.
Ain't got no boundaries to hold me back. Boundaries is what I lack. Howdy, folks, and welcome to the Conflation Station. Hop on board the next train out, and let's take a ride to a place where anything's possible.
Hello and welcome to the Conflation Station. My name is Hugo Yorway and I'll be your tour guide for today's podcast, including political commentary, conspiracy theories, and some cool music composed by Dude X and performed by the inimitable Electric Love Orchestra. At the Conflation Station, our team of creative writers and novice journalists combine elements of irony, satire, and pure absurdity to create insightful political commentary and homespun, conflated conspiracy theories that are taken from today's news headlines. Since today's news stories are filled with so much misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation, and in a world where fake news is generated by artificially intelligent robots, whether you believe it or not, anything you hear reported in the news today is likely to be a work of fiction. To the contrary, here at the Conflation Station, you can always count on us as your most trusted news source because we exercise the utmost journalistic accuracy, integrity, and balanced reporting. While many public employees had the day off for President's Day this past Monday, and children had the day off from school, President Trump and his cabal of sycophants, including his Chief of Staff, Susie Wiles, his Minister of Propaganda, Joseph Goebbels, Stephen Miller, and his personal legal whores, Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche, worked through the night to draft an executive order which will result in changing the name of President's Day to President Donald J. Trump Day, beginning in February of 2027. The executive order reads as follows, and I quote, "I, Donald John Trump, being the greatest president in the history of the United States of America, even better than Presidents Washington and Lincoln, hereby resolve that, effective February 2027, and in perpetuity thereafter, President's Day shall be renamed to President Donald John Trump Day. Any and all references to other former presidents, specifically Barack Hussein Obama, shall be ignored and stricken from the record. So let it be written, so let it be done." End quote. After signing the executive order, President Trump released the following statement on Truth Social, and I quote, "Among all of my great achievements as president, I have only one ambition left to fulfill, and that is to kill more Americans on U.S. soil than President Lincoln did during the Civil War. Not for nothing, but did you know that during the Civil War, Lincoln killed over 620,000 Americans here in the United States? It's a tough act to follow, but being that I am the greatest president of all time, second to none, and perhaps the greatest human ever to walk the planet, I know I can do much better than Lincoln did. Right now, I've only killed 2 Americans, Alex Preddy and Renee Good, so I have a lot of catching up to do. But with the incredible people I've appointed to run the Department of Homeland Security, thank you Christine Ohm and Tom Homan, between now and the midterm elections, I should be able to catch up by deploying ICE agents to invade sanctuary cities and attack all the Latinos, blacks, transsexuals, and Muslims that live in them. This will be yet another first for any U.S. president, and second only to the extermination of Jews by Adolf Hitler during the Second World War. If I can't make it happen in America, I will invade Poland this coming May. I hear that they make the best kielbasa in the world in Poland, and there is no reason why America cannot be the kielbasa capital of the world." End quote. As of today, the U.S. government is in a partial shutdown due to the fact that Republicans and Democrats have failed to reach a deal on funding for the Department of Homeland Security. This is the second government shutdown in just over 1 year of Trump's second term in office. The dispute over funding for the Department of Homeland Security stems from the recent cold-blooded murders of 2 innocent 37-year-old U.S. citizens in Minneapolis, Minnesota, by ICE agents. The Democrats are seeking legislation to put guardrails in place to limit the unlawful conduct of ICE agents, while Republicans, in support of President Trump's plan to exterminate all non-whites living in the United States, seek to maintain the status quo by opposing any and all of the Democrats' proposals at any cost, whatever the outcomes may be. In defending the Republican position, Speaker of the House Mike Johnson, a Republican from Louisiana, said, quote, "The legislation proposed by these liberal, left-wing, radical, commie Democrats in the House of Representatives is unacceptable and puts the lives of our federal ICE agents at risk. How can the American public expect ICE agents to engage in illegal snatch and grab operations if ICE agents are required to wear body cams, walk the streets unmasked, and need to obtain search warrants in order to break into the homes of law-abiding U.S. citizens? To hell with the Constitution. The recommendation proposed by Democrats will have the effect of thwarting President Trump's reign of terror in states run by Democrats. My Republican colleagues cannot and will not cave into the demands of the Democrats, even if those demands make sense and protect the lives of innocent civilians. Republicans must do everything in their power to provide the president with the tools he needs to govern as a dictator. Instilling fear in the hearts and minds of Americans is the best way to achieve President Trump's goal. I, for one, do not want to be primary during this year's midterm elections. And now, it's time to take a quick musical break to enjoy the first of two musical experiments written by America's favorite songwriter and world-renowned composer, E. Dude X. Over the past week, E. Dude X has been in the studio experimenting with electronic instruments, combining the sounds of heavy metal music with the techno and industrial genres. E. Dude X calls this music fusion, but to some of you uninitiated listeners, you may say it sounds more like confusion. Needless to say, these two new compositions surely tested the technical skills of the members of the inimitable Electric Love Orchestra. The first piece is entitled Meditation Machine. Stay tuned, and we'll be right back. Thank you, E. Dude X and the Electric Love Orchestra for taking yet another risk by creating and performing that life-altering electronic music experiment. Unfortunately, due to the excessive high voltage used for the performance, the band's lead guitarist, Arno Steenbergen, was electrocuted and was laid to rest at the Our Lady of Original Sin Cemetery, located here in Hogshead Holler. The Honorable Reverend Rusty Stubblefield presided over the services and delivered the eulogy. Arno, a native of Iceland, will be tough to replace. May his shredding be a blessing. Since President Trump's election to a second term in office, our team of novice reporters has been covering our next story. As part of President Trump's ongoing efforts to disenfranchise black and brown voters from participating in elections, this week, Trump signaled that, come this year's midterm elections, he will be deploying ICE agents across the nation to intimidate black and brown voters in districts that have historically cast their ballots for Democrats. Earlier in his second term of office, Trump directed governors of red states to gerrymander voting maps to increase the number of Republican districts in their states, most notably in Texas. These districts were composed of black and brown voters. However, Trump's plan backfired when several blue states, including California, under the leadership of Governor Gavin Newsom, used the same strategy to increase the number of Democratic districts in their own states. As part of his grand scheme to deny black and brown U.S. citizens of their right to vote, this past week Congress approved a Trump-backed plan called the SAVE Act, which requires that, in order to cast a ballot in a federal election, voters will need proof of U.S. citizenship in the form of a government-issued picture ID. Upon review of the SAVE Act, by the way, SAVE is an acronym for Suppress All Votes Equally, researchers here at the Conflation Station confirmed that the SAVE Act will, in fact, suppress voter registration in low-income red states, where, quotes, white trash voters will be less likely to access and afford the identification they need to vote. Taking this into account, in lieu of providing a real ID, a valid U.S. passport, and/or a U.S. birth certificate as required by the Act, the Trump administration has approved the following ID alternatives in red states only. The ID may be in the form of a country club membership card for any white 1%er who applies, an NRA membership card, any proof of membership in the KKK, and/or evidence that a person is a current or former member of the Nazi Party. When asked by our White House correspondent about free and fair elections in America, President Trump responded by saying, quotes, "You morons in the fake news media should know by now that under my administration, nothing comes for free." Trump added that he was going to place a 100% tariff on all foreign correspondents. And now, it's time for another short musical experiment by E-Dude X, featuring the Electric Love Orchestra's new lead guitarist, Less Is More, from the heavy metal group Ear Pain. This piece is entitled Blinded. Stay tuned and we'll be right back with the remainder of today's podcast. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Special thanks to Les Ismore for his guitar pyrotechnics on his debut performance. As always, thank you again, E-Dude X, and the gang in the Electric Love Orchestra for playing along. Finally, in several unrelated stories, the FBI continues its search for kidnapping victim Nancy Guthrie. The FBI is currently looking into more than 50,000 reports it received on its tip line. At the present time, the most promising leads point to Bad Bunny kidnapping Miss Guthrie and holding her captive on Epstein Island, Miss Guthrie being held hostage by one of the members of the musical duo Daft Punk, additionally, that the 84-year-old Guthrie is living with her cousin Arlo Guthrie in California, that she was kidnapped by the creature from the Black Lagoon, and lastly, there are several sightings of her working as a greeter at a Walmart outside Atlanta, Georgia. Nancy Guthrie's kidnapping has also spawned several other high-profile copycat celebrity kidnappings. Purportedly, ex-Beatles drummer and Rock and Roll Hall of Famer Ringo Starr kidnapped Paul McCartney's uncle, and the monster Frankenstein is thought to have kidnapped Mary Shelley, the author who created his legendary persona. Our reporters have also learned that back in the year 1952, ICE agents interrogated Eddie Rochester Anderson, mistaking him for an undocumented Somali terrorist agitator. Lastly, Attorney General Pam Bondi was observed wearing knee pads as she exited the Oval Office after a 15-minute meeting with President Trump following her performance at last week's congressional hearing.
Well, we've reached our destination. We'll be back next week to pick you up for yet another journey to and from the Conflation Station.